All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Innovation Alchemy. My name is Adam Castle, Director of Venture Services and Partnerships with WeTech Alliance. And today I'm joined by three makers in the region of Windsor, Essex, and Chatham-Kent. These gentlemen here are on the forefront of what's being made new in this region, and we're going to dive into the manufacturing sector today. Now, both of these, or all of these men, are also part of the i.d.e.a Fund program. So recipients of that program, all working on green and new innovative things. And we're very excited to dive into this conversation. So joining me today is Andrew Glover. Andrew's with Harbour Technologies. Andrew, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. We have James Gibb. James, you're from Affinity. How's things going?
Going great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. And Vedagya, we have you here from Estare Manufacturing. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for inviting us.
Amazing. So we're going to have a quick conversation today just about kind of the state of manufacturing in our region, the state of manufacturing in Canada, where you guys think we can win, where you think we're headed, and what you've learned along your journey. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Great.
Awesome.
Great.
So Vedagya, why don't you start with your background? Where do you come from?
So I'm originally from India.
Yeah.
I came to Canada about 9 years ago as a master's student in University of Windsor. And then I loved Windsor so much, I stayed here, grew my venture here, currently growing. So it's been a great journey and I look forward to continue growing here.
That's awesome. And tell us a little bit about Estare.
So Estare is a dual-purpose manufacturing company, solutions company. What we do is we help other companies mature their products based on our industrial engineering knowledge. And then also we fabricate and deliver our own products for the industry, particularly for the manufacturing sector. So every product that we do work is in line with what the manufacturing sector in Canada or in North America needs.
Very cool.
So we are into creating value with respect to manufacturing.
Awesome. You've got a really interesting perspective for this conversation then, so I'm excited about it. And James, what's your background? Where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm born and bred in Windsor, Essex. I grew up here, moved away to attend school, and mechanical engineering graduate. Spent 18 years working in automotive and plastics manufacturing before venturing out and starting my own startup. Affinity Custom Designs is actually our startup or our business. We operate a couple of different brands, and we are a solutions provider for fabricated plastics. So unlike injection molding, rotational injection molding, thermoforming, we actually fabricate plastics in a constructive technology. So whether it be our brand of Affinity Outdoor Living Furniture, or we're design and build for agriculture, industrial applications, anything that might be plastics related where somebody needs a solutions provider for them.
Really cool. So out of a highly kind of regulated industry in automotive and into kind of the Wild West when it comes to manufacturing here.
A little bit of everything, yes. So that's something we'll probably get into the conversation a little bit about with some of our lessons of what we like to do, of what we've learned in automotive and some of the manufacturing factories I've worked in previously to where our startup is now and how that's progressing along with what systems and processes need to be put in place to grow our business even further.
Very cool. And Andrew, thank you for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about Harbour.
Well, my background, starting off with Harbour, very similar, engineering, mechanical, went away to university, born here in Windsor, so came back, and our primary company is a family business, and my brother and I are co-owners in it. We took it over during the 2008 recession, which was fun. So, that was a good dive into learning how to restructure and survive, and being burned in the automotive industry, probably similar to your experiences in the automotive. We decided back in 2007 to really diversify and get into new markets. And fortunately, with everything going on with tariffs and the automotive industry right now, we've got zero automotive customers. So it makes it a little bit less stressful with the geopolitics right now. And we diversified into everything from defense, nuclear, aerospace, medical, and recently space.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, so, why don't we start there and jump off with What does it mean to be in manufacturing today? And obviously you came into it at a very pivotal moment. It feels like this is another pivotal moment. What are you seeing?
It's very similar. The feel is very similar. It's the calm before the storm, so to speak, and that was kind of the feelings that we had in 2008, where we kind of sensed financially customers were tightening up, payments were slowing down, and I've got a sense of that from other similar companies that are more heavily into the automotive or heavily into trading with the U.S. And it's kind of the feedback that's happening now is that there's the longer terms in payment, and that just waterfalls throughout the supply chain, and then it creates layoffs and into similar situations as 2008, which is what we're kind of sensing right now.
For sure, yeah. So I think that's an important point. Is it feels like that calm before the storm, but I know each of you are working on things that are drastically different. And so, Vedagya, tell me a little bit as you've got this 30,000 foot look at manufacturing as being a supplier too. What are you seeing on the ground?
So exactly with Estare, what we have done is we are trying to create these pack frames, which are a necessary evil for the automotive manufacturing and supply chain. So there are pros and cons to those packaging frames that are conventionally used, but what we are bringing is we're trying to reduce the cost of capital requires, the carbon footprint around it, the operational cost, because we are trying to reduce the weight of the frames by 30%. So on a grand scale of things, if a truck is driving from Windsor to Texas carrying these large automotive components, the footprint of the truck that it goes on and the fuel consumption, all of it gets reduced. So creating values in these small segments overall cascades into a big value creation for the entire economy.
Sure, yeah.
And I think overall the manufacturing sector around us is going in that direction, because we have to look for options that can create economic as well as sustainable environmental values around us.
It's kind of hard to separate the idea of sustainability from the political football that has become. But what I've noticed is that a lot of businesses they're just pragmatic about it, right? They understand that at the end of the day, it means a cost savings, and that means a larger bottom line. So are you finding a lot of reception into that pivot that you're making, or is there people really excited about that product? And this is what you applied to Idea Fund with, right? This project.
Correct. So Idea Fund has been a great help in building our product, getting it to the level where we can bring it out to the market. Now we are seeing some traction. Customers are very receptive of it. Customers have their own feedback. We are working on our pilot program for 5 sets of packaging frames that we'll give the customers for a month time frame to get their hands, touch and feel of it. Because it's not just the executives who buy these frames. It's the people who are using these frames on a day-to-day basis. They need to be in line with the product. And if they are in line and the costs are reasonable, that's where the impact will be made. So that's what Estare is aiming for.
Really cool. That's an exciting spot to be in. James, I know you're seeing kind of the consumer sentiment side of things with your products. What has that been like?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a resurgence of localization and a reshoring of customer demand in the specifically Canadian, right? We're very much that elbows up phase right now, where everyone's still feeling out, what's happening in the political world and how does that affect their purchasing decisions. And for us, with our consumer side of the business, that is definitely having a positive impact on our business and how we operate and what we're able to market to our consumers. But at the same time, I think it's, from a manufacturing and innovation level, whether it be for consumer goods and environmental impacts and manufacturing, automotive, non-automotive, still comes back down to diversification, being diversified in many markets. But the one thing, and I don't know if you gentlemen are also hearing and seeing the same feel, but the investment in technology is still paramount in a lot of manufacturers' minds of how do we how do we automate more? How do we take waste out of our process? What sorts of systems can be implemented into our processes? Because as those bottom lines tighten up, we have to find ways to save cost in our manufacturing. So we're looking for, or we're seeing a resurgence a little bit there of how do we take the knowledge, the know-how, the experience, the expertise of local solutions providers and bring those into our manufacturing processes as well, and make improvements to what we're already doing.
For sure. It's almost creating a hybrid of like, we have the skills, but we need the technology to kind of match pace with that.
Right.
And step up. So Andrew, I know you guys are highly diversified into some really interesting areas. I understand you're working in shipbuilding now as well on the defense side.
Yeah, we've some of our interests are in defense, and it was something that we've been working on for a long time, was trying to purchase a marine company, and it didn't facilitate. It was a year-long process that wasn't successful at the end of the day, and lo and behold, right in our neighborhood, 45 minutes away, there is a partnership opportunity to partner with a local shipbuilder, Hike Metal Products, and that's through Atmos, which is an indigenous manufacturer. And Atmos is a pretty unique company. It's heavily in the defense industry and sees the opportunities with the marine really growing, especially with the investments in Arctic defense. So like patrol vessels, Coast Guard, Department of Defense, even OPP, RCMP. There's a huge opportunity to produce that, and there's been some big investments in Ontario, in Canada, and the Prime Minister recently just announced a huge spending. It's almost to offset some of the domestic losses that are happening now, and trying to bolster some economic growth with defense. And so we're in a pretty exciting position to capitalize on that, and we've got some very unique jobs, from space programs to marine underwater systems, and so yeah, it's pretty interesting, and but it's tough markets to be in.
Yeah,
diversification is an easy word to say, but it's a tough thing to do, and it's many years of banging on doors. And it's not even just building a Rolodex of contacts in certain markets. It's also understanding the markets and looking at it from how you can give value to it, but also fully understand it so that you can get value out of it.
Right. And
that's a tough thing to diversify, and you have to spend a lot of money, whether it's on quality program upgrades that, for example, for defense, you have to invest a ton of money into cyber control, cyber security, controlled goods, before you can even quote a job.
Right.
So you're spending, $50,000-$60,000 just in
the
cyber security before you can even have a door open and a quote opportunity. So it's there's challenges to each market, and it's something that we always take on the challenge to try to develop those new markets. So it's kind of a company. It's kind of bred into the company. We don't give up on challenges, and we like to take them on and see where it takes us.
Now, I know you've all kind of dabbled in a bit of diversification from your original kind of starting point, and that's a good point. Like we really beat that drum, I think, hard over the years, where we know we have this strong manufacturing base, but it's really important that there's diversification. Mm-hmm. But your story is over 10 years in the making, since 2009. So it's not an overnight thing. You can't just flip a switch, or you can't just start to reach out to a new sales book and all of a sudden create a market for yourself. It's intentional. It's a long process. And what's kind of your advice right now, I guess, when there's so many manufacturers that are caught, I think, on their back foot at this point in time? How do you what would you tell them to help them navigate that kind of choppy waters?
Well, I would for one, start up with a game plan. Look at what market best fits your capabilities. We always say we can get into any type of market that's a manufacturing, whether if you can machine it, mold it, assemble it, we can do it. And that thought process goes a long way when you're looking at diversifying. The automotive industry isn't very much different than the defense. You're using the same type of equipment to manufacture, whether you're welding, machining, fabricating, and assembling. It's all kind of the same principles. It's just, the quality levels might be different, and those aspects are where, you might have to retain somebody that has that knowledge, or hire in somebody that can upgrade your quality program. But looking at it from the different markets, my best piece of advice is don't venture off too far from what your core business is. Just look at it from a different market perspective. It may be a same piece of metal that's machined, it's just going into a different type of application.
Very cool.
And that's probably the easiest, smoothest way.
Yeah.
Versus going from completely drastic, cutting metal to making textiles.
Yes.
It's kind of keep it to what you know is
a bigger
probably
jump.
the most successful.
And there's enough parallels to be able to kind of explore it in those ways, which is interesting. So, Vedagya,
One thing I would like to add to that is not just the expertise in manufacturing aspect of it, but we have to have a mindset shift across the manufacturing industry. So what I have been primarily enforcing in Estare is, on one hand, we have the experts in productivity when it comes to like Toyota Production Systems, for example, the excellence in productivity. But on the other hand, you have the whole creativity gap that's bridged in by the Silicon Valley culture with the Googles, the Facebooks. So if we can blend and create a common ground for fostering the productivity with creativity, I think that's what's going to give us the biggest impact, and in addition to the financial investments that we could get. And I think helping from VTech and the Fed devs, I think all of it is becoming a good catalyst to make this ecosystem around Windsor Essex to make it happen.
Well, I think it's like you say, diversification is a slogan that gets thrown around very loosely sometimes, and like you're mentioning, you have to understand what your core skills, what your core technology capabilities are, and maximize those potential opportunities without diversifying too far away from what the core is. If you're really good at something, make sure that you get out in front of those potential markets that can benefit from your skills and technology and expertise, versus maybe totally, throwing the bathwater out and starting over again with something new, right? But getting, like you said, having a good business plan in place, or at least having a vision of where the business goes, and what globally you're able to accomplish, is going to help you put those plans in motion and stick to those goals, and those plans will come to fruition in a lot of ways.
Can you talk to that in terms of the story from Affinity? Because in a lot of ways, that's what you did, coming from automotive and moving into this consumer forward kind of space,
right,
but using all of the same skills that you learned and kind of honed and mastered in your previous career life.
Yeah, I think it's, Affinity was a unique opportunity where the opportunity presented itself because of the small project-based challenges I had come across through my automotive career, some opportunities that I was able to learn through another company I was working at that was automotive blend, a very diversified company. We were into marine, power sports, automotive, all sorts of different lawn and garden, recreation vehicles. We were doing a lot of manufacturing in all different worlds. And I was able to gain a lot of experience, a lot of understanding, and some technology that was available that we weren't necessarily taking advantage of. And that technology shifted my opportunity to move into a consumer good, with our outdoor living furniture and our consumer goods for homes and businesses that way, where we were able to take the fabricated experience of fabricated plastics, how to work with it, what's necessary, how to make it last, how to make it durable, the environmental benefits of using the recycled plastics in the way that we are, and using it for a brand that we were able to build from zero. Along with that, now we also have the experience to provide engineered solutions for those non-consumer goods. So whether it be in agriculture or industrial applications, medical and health, right? And that's where we as a business have to look at where's our expertise best suited. Like you said, does it make sense for us to move into metal manufacturing when we're focusing on being experts in fabricated plastics? Does it make sense for us to be moving more in the plastics direction, whether it be through advanced manufacturing technologies, 3D printing, other methods and processes to get there and become more of a stronghold go-to solutions provider in plastics, or are we going to diversify across our manufacturing capabilities? And then other industries, medical being a big one, right? With medical and laboratory, there's, as you mentioned, there's a lot of certifications, a lot of homework, a lot of pre-work that has to be done before you can even enter into those spaces and get the opportunities. But how does that look for a business like ours that's growing and building upon what we already have, and what's affordable versus what's the time for our plan, and what can we roll into building our business into those industries if they make sense for us.
Really cool. So I want to take a little bit of an off-script moment. You've all kind of experienced some of the programs that we run, and you have a really clear view of how hard it is to make those pivots that are clearly needed right now in Canadian manufacturing. What are your suggestions for the next round of programming? What would you like to see to help you explore more of those types of opportunities, or to help you kind of level up or look at kind of what's next for your organizations? And Vedagya, I'll start with you.
So for Estare, there are two avenues we are taking. One is our sales side, where we are trying to bring our products out to the market, get it in front of as many manufacturing facilities as possible. But one key factor that we do need at Estare is to build our own version of how do we recycle plastic, because all the product around plastic has a shelf, has a life, right? And then right now the infrastructure around it is not so robust, particularly in terms when I talk about my product, it's FRP related. So there's really no infrastructure on how to recycle it.
Okay.
There's reduced carbon footprint as compared to steel, but that's not sufficient. What is needed is there's a lot of plastic waste around us. And if we can bring it all to a recycled, repurposed ventures, that would really give this community a lot more advantage. It's hard to define it in the early stages, but as we mature it, there's a lot more scope in recycled plastics.
Are you kind of talking about the distance or difference between there's the recycling side of things, and then there's that true kind of circular economy piece where things actually stay within circulation from that perspective, and you don't really lose value within it, whereas the current kind of setup is there's a lot of value extraction that has to happen before you can create a product that's useful again.
So it's a one after the other. Like you cannot have a circular economy unless you have a processes of repurposing the existing things up to 10%, 20%,
right,
and get it to 100%, and then you can focus on circular economy. Before that, it's just talking without any context. So once we have to solve the initial problem that we have, and that would solve a lot of, for example, in case of Affinity, you would be able to repurpose a lot of plastics. And plastics as a material has the ability to be non-biodegradable for most part, right? And that's where we need to use its advantage, the virtue of plastic. We need plastics not in terms of those FMCGs, consumables that can get tossed out, but the stuff that lasts, the articles that are built to last, for example, that does not need to get weatherability impact, or that does not get to have distortion impact. Those are the things that we need plastics in. And consuming all the plastics waste around us and bringing into those widgets would be a good thing for the economy.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like you're talking at a policy level, which is really interesting. So James, I'll throw it to you as the other kind of plastics expert here.
It is interesting just looking at the three companies that are in front of us and where the three of us are at in our journey as well, and how WeTech plays a part into that. I believe you're very much in a discovery development phase. We're probably more in a scale up phase, and you're well established. But looking at how's your business grow beyond where it's already been shown capability, right? And for Affinity, policy wise within environmental impact regulations, how recyclables are used, how plastics are viewed and repurposed, and like you said, that circular economy to it. Policy, absolutely. We can never have enough voices at the table sometimes to help promote, what is the technologies that are available to us today, right? And maybe within Canada, do we have a gap? Where are the gaps in Canada, and how do we make ourselves more self-dependent in our own country versus globalization for outsourcing of those resources to be done, or that type of work to be done outside of our own borders. So not only scaling, not only business planning, but also policy development within our own lawmakers and government.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm seeing is there's no one answer to how do we help Canada move to the next space. It's a lot of little nudges that have to be added together to kind of get us there. Andrew, I'm curious, I know you deal with a lot of red tape with what you're doing. What would have made it easier to get you from 2009 to now?
Really, it all comes down to a lot of times, cash flow. When you're growing, when you're starting out, and to have programs in place that, give you a little help, whether it's supporting hiring new engineers that have just graduated, programs for apprenticeships, programs to invest in new capital equipment. Those things are really key to help you grow. There's other programs that are we really utilize is your scientific research and development, your SHRED.
SHRED's amazing.
We do a heavy amount of research into new products, engineering up automation equipment to do that product, and that really helps the bottom line at the end of the fiscal year, is tapping into those types of programs. Policy wise, you can look at it provincially, federally. Looking at Canada from 30,000 foot perspective, in some of the years we've I feel like as a manufacturer, the governments have kind of lost focus on the fact that society is only as advanced as its manufacturing. Otherwise, you become a society of service industries. And investing in manufacturing is key to economic drivers, better living conditions for everybody, and investing in the manufacturing is critical. And I think we're seeing a resurgence on that, especially in Ontario, and with what sounds like it's coming out of the federal is looking positive. And those will all culminate into hopefully good policies that support manufacturing, make manufacturers comfortable investing in capital equipment. Because what we're seeing right now is, do you invest in that $1 million machine into Windsor, or do you invest in that $1 million machine in Michigan? And those are decisions that a lot of companies in Windsor are making right now. And without the support and programs put in place to, give that push across the finish line for owners to go, okay, well, we will invest in this, because we can cover a lot more of our costs.
For sure.
And we can be now more competitive versus looking at having to move your facility into another market or into another country.
I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think if anything good could come out of the past 6 months politically, is it's been a wake-up call to our nation about what our potential was versus what we've allowed it to scale back to. And it's a bit of a, like you said, it's a bit of a resurgence of, hey, why can't we manufacture here? Why can't we do this here? Kind of, the COVID, we had a bit of a COVID wake up as well with N95 masks, and why, at that time did we not have manufacturing, locally or within our own borders? I think you were involved in some of that manufacturing as well, right? That was a big opportunity for us as a nation to look at and say we need to be more self-sufficient in a lot of ways. And in these past 6 months, I think it's helped a lot of our citizens wake up and say, why aren't we able to make this here? Why aren't we able to manufacture here? We're one of the smartest nations in the world when it comes to advanced technologies, and we've been part of putting men on the moon, and all the most advanced military systems in the world, and some of the most advanced medical systems that have been built have come out of Canada. We have the people, we have the brains, we have the education to do a lot of great things. I think it's just a matter of now we need to start thinking about, okay, how do we prosper in a time of uncertainty?
Yeah, for sure. I think I want to pick up on the thread you talked about, which is that idea of capital. And so that working capital piece is so important. But really what it is, it's providing a little bit of space. It gives you that opportunity to think a little bit more deeply instead of just doing it. I would say, in the last 10 years when I've worked in this field, working with manufacturers, that's always been the biggest challenge, is there's either money, but there isn't time, or there's time, but there isn't money. It's hard to find both. And that's where I think that there needs to be the policy and the government programs that actually come in and help to kind of deliver that a little bit more strongly. And we're definitely seeing some resurgence there. Hitting our 2% GDP of our defense budget is going to be a big one. I know that NATO is looking to up that to 5%. We also just saw the other day that potentially joining in with Europe on some defense contracts, and a new agreement there too. So all of that going towards the better. I also want to touch on the capital piece as well, because what I often see is that if a company can't find capital within Canada, they're going to find it outside. And that creates a really dangerous situation, but also one that actually extracts a lot of the innovation, a lot of the knowledge, a lot of the intellectual property that we're creating here. We need to find Canadian investors to invest in Canada.
100%.
And I think that's such a big one too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to flip now onto points of pride and just kind of pull you guys on, what are you proud of with what you've created, what you've changed, what impact you've been able to make? And Vedagya, I'll start with you again.
So we are definitely proud of the company we have built, the vision we are bringing to the market, and the value of our product that will help the entire automotive industry. What we are grateful, on the other hand, is i.d.e.a Fund for helping us develop the product. Our growth coaches have been great. So it's a great moment for us where we are proud of the product we are making, and we're trying to be an organic startup. So one thing that we are proud of is we're trying to refrain from using capital or investment, and do it till the point we can mature the process to the nth degree. And only then we need capital. It's like, okay, have we exhausted all the other options? Have we done everything that can be done before we go for buying that big machinery? Like, machineries are required, but only when your capacity does not allow. If machineries are required just to take away from DL, then it's not really a value for the machinery. You're not optimizing it for its use. You're just producing products faster. Even if the capacity does not require it, that's not value. That's like pushing things into a bad quality dimension. So when capacity requires, I'm glad to have investments, but till the capacity requires, I want to build the company organically.
We're seeing that more and more across tech and startups, is that bootstrapping is becoming kind of the norm before the big investment raises and stuff. And I think there's good reason around that. You get to keep a lot more of what you're creating, which is a big piece. And again, back to, it's hard to find sometimes capital in Canada. And so we need to be scrappy and gritty and kind of build it ourselves a little bit first.
I would like to say the best ideas come when you're trying to find solutions without resources. Because if you have resources, you're automatically gonna go to the next available resource. But if you don't have them, you'll look for solutions, you'll think out of the box. And that's what we need.
Very cool. I love that. I love that. That's very much like a startup founder mentality being brought into this world of manufacturing, which I think is so important. Those two things coming together is a really powerful combination, I think. So, James.
I'm just most proud for Affinity of the reputation we've built in a short period of time. A really solid brand reputation for our Affinity outdoor living products, but then also just a company reputation where employees that now work for us are very proud and loyal to us.
Yeah.
From just a few short years ago of just by myself and working and building what we build, to now having a team of employees and team members that work together that are proud of what we do.
That's so cool.
They're encouraged and come to work with a great attitude every day, and that's a really proud feeling as a founder to feel like, okay, what we're doing is actually resonating with not only the consumers that we're selling to, but those who are part of the process and part of the makeup and the DNA of our business, right?
For sure, yeah.
That's a really proud feeling. I'm really grateful for even just all of the professional support, the wisdom, the sharing that of other businesses and those who've gone through the hardships kind of through their journey, and those who have reached out and been very supportive to our business as we've grown along the way, and they've offered those opportunities to us to learn from maybe some of the mistakes they made or some of the wisdom that they've gained over time. That's invaluable to me as a business startup and a business owner. Is that how do we minimize the waste in that startup? Because bootstrapping has been a big part of our core philosophy. Same idea, right? No outside investment, self-funded through profit, keeps us, in a lot of ways allows us to be quicker and more agile as we move. But also it does slow our process and growth potential because we are being very cognizant of the money that we do spend and where we invest that money and how it's going to return it on its investment over time too, right? So a little bit of everything that I guess rolls together into the proud and the grateful moments.
Yeah, and I'll commend you on the brand as well because we met like 6 years ago now.
Approximately
around there, like 5 years, something like that, and like you just had the logo. We're just starting things off right after COVID, and Affinity's everywhere now. And you see it at city events, and you've done such a great job at leveraging what's going on to be present too.
Right.
And it's just so cool to always see. I always get a kick out of seeing like an Affinity chair at Bright Lights or an Affinity patio set at the next big event that's coming up. So it's really cool to see.
Thanks.
Yeah. Andrew, what are you proud of, buddy?
Well, very similar to James, with the environment that you create in the workplace, keeping, we have such interesting projects. Yeah. It's always great to inform the team, hey, we're going to be working on, a new product that's going to be on the moon eventually. And seeing that interest and just the talk throughout the company of, wow, we're doing some really neat projects that are cutting edge and are going to stand out in time, and developing those projects out, seeing them through the end. It's as you mentioned with the resources. Even as established as we are, there's certain products that we work on where there's just no resources for. You're on your own. You're developing. Sometimes in some cases you're being told it can't be done. And those are some of the greatest challenges that when we overcome them as a team, it's wow, we've done it. Yeah. And one of the products was in the medical industry, the isolation medical gowns. Doing it with a robot, the equipment supplier for one of the key processes, which was the ultrasonic welding, said you can't do it that way. There's no such way of doing it. And we're like, okay, well, we're gonna engineer it our own way. And we engineered it our own way. And that equipment supplier actually has asked us a few times to look at other products to use our process for it. But those products are developing it's just so in depth, and the team meetings and trying to overcome it. You've got deadlines, you've got product you have to manufacture, and just that intense work from the entire team, and then you sit back and go, wow, we've actually done it. Those moments are what you're probably most proud of in our company. Is being able to say, yeah, we did that. And
cool. I love that, like, hold my wrench moment. We're gonna do this anyways. Kind of thing.
And there's times where we even do little bets saying, okay, well, can we break 60 seconds on that cycle time? And then you get a phone call, I'm down to 45, and it's a celebration, because it's taken you 2 years to get to that point.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's all about patience in business. It's it's different than what society's used to right now, where it's immediate gratification. And to make a good business, and you gentlemen are probably well aware, it's a lot of sweat and sweat equity and time and being patient to see it develop through to where the potential actually is.
I think that's so important, because the last 10 years have really been marked by this mentality that we saw with the rise of Facebook and the rise of Google and these giant behemoth tech companies that made their living, or made what they are today, out of this idea that you move fast and break things. Right? That has been that mentality out of the valley. But I think that's a very different story than what the truth is. And what we see is that startups are not ever overnight success stories, especially not anymore. It's a long process. It's a lot of iteration. It's a lot of sweat. It's a lot of time. But that's what makes sustainable businesses. And that's, I think, the difference is that you don't get that, like, VC zombie type business anymore that is funded but not profitable. Right. There needs to be profitability first. And I think we're focusing on that finally again in Canada, and stopping the idea that we have to catch up with what else is out there. We're kind of building our own path, which is really cool.
And patience in business to grow it is one thing, but you also have to be quick and reactive, especially in today's time. Like, just even developing products has to be quick. Decisions have to be made really rapidly, and a lot of times it's you're really relying on a limited amount of information that you have at the time, but you're using your best judgment and previous knowledge and background to try to make the best decision. And in order to be successful, you have to make those decisions pretty quick with confidence. So, and sometimes you get it wrong.
Of course,
and it can be costly, but when you get it right, it's quite an award and accomplishment, and that's something that we're proud of too. Is we're able to rapidly adapt and take on projects, develop it, and then move on to the next project or further develop it.
I think that's such an important and key point is, you're making decisions that are rapid, but it's towards this horizon that's way off in the distance. You're building something that's not for tomorrow. You're making decisions that are for tomorrow, but it's for a business that's for, a lifetime, a generation, your kids' generation. And so that's a really cool mentality to have about it. So I think that kicks off kind of our piece into the wisdom. What are the lessons that we've learned? I think that's a great one. Vedagya, I'll go to you next. What's a big lesson that you've learned in this work?
So in terms of product design, what we have learned is we have to keep the end manufacturer or the operator who's working on the product to make it like the tangible product. Unlike, so as you mentioned in the Facebooks, the Googles, you can move fast and break things. That's great. But in manufacturing is on the harder end of an already harder entrepreneurial journey. So moving fast and breaking things can be expensive. And you cannot really do it over and over and over again. So you have to be cognizant of, okay, yes, this is a great product, but using that mentality of Six Sigma, for example, and having the product matured so that it can be fabricated or assembled or manufactured in the way it's intended, without costing an arm and a leg. And being able to do it within the cycle time is a key thing. So although we have manufacturing background, all of my team has a manufacturing background, sometimes implementing that was not the easiest part. So that's something we have learned. We are trying to keep it open-ended. Also, one thing we have learned is all of my team is engineers. So in entrepreneurship, engineering is a segment of it, not the entirety of it. So looking things from a marketing perspective or from a sales perspective has been has been new to us.
Yeah.
I.d.e.a. Fund has been great for that again, because before I.d.e.a. Fund, all our efforts were into developing this great product that we have.
Right.
But only after we spent time with the growth coaches, we got the understanding, okay, we can make the great product, we can make it within the cycle time, all that. But how do we sell it?
Yeah.
How do we bring it out to market? How do we show it to the customers that will be best suited for their needs?
Yeah.
So those challenges and those lessons were crucial for our growth.
That's awesome. And that's tough. That's not an easy thing to do in any market, but B2B especially. I know manufacturers are notoriously hard to sell to. And so congrats on that success, and really cool. Thanks for sharing that lesson. Yeah, James.
There's so many, so much wisdom that we could probably share in but the time's really limited, I know. Honestly, one of the probably for anyone who's thinking about getting into a startup or moving into a venture for themselves, there's just one thing that money can't buy, and that's hard work and determination. There is nothing. Anyone could walk in the room and put a bag of money on the table. It doesn't necessarily make you any more determined to solve the problems. And as an entrepreneur, that is like the number one skill I think you need to have, is that determination that, there's a brick wall in front of me. I'm going to figure out how to break it down and bust my way through to solve the problem. Right? Without that, you know what? You can lean on a lot of people around you. I've been very fortunate to have a really great support group, professionally, but also personally, right? Family, my wife has been nothing but supportive to this whole journey for us, and all the sacrifice that goes into starting up from nothing. So make sure you surround yourself with some really great people. If you're starting up with a new venture or getting into something innovative, even if it's you're well established, but you're entering into a new market, something different, something new for your business. You got to have good people around you to support you, because there's a lot of unknowns, and you're stepping to that side, onto the side of the cliff without knowing if you have a parachute that's going to work or not. Right? So having those people around you in a really good support system makes the journey a lot more valuable to you as a person at the end of the day, right? So I think it's just a lot of the soft skills side of it, I guess, the philosophical stuff that comes into being an entrepreneur and diversifying your abilities and what you can do, and not being afraid to take the plunge sometimes.
And I think what we're learning now too is, as like just time marches on, is that there are no soft skills in any context of business. It's all professional skills, and like we're starting to move away from that and realize that like you need both sides of things. It isn't just the technical. You have to understand how to have interpersonal relationships and build strong bridges and manage relationships, and so that's awesome that you mentioned that. Jen, so we're gonna wrap it up, and I think what's incredible is, from the backyard to global automotive manufacturing supply chains to the moon, Windsor, Essex, and Chatham Kent, we're making things here. We've been making things here for almost 250 years, and thanks to you, I think you're some of the best that are doing it right now. We're going to be making things for a long time to come. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today, having this conversation. I look forward to continuing to work with all of you, and can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thanks
so much.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.